Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Maribel. I am an academic advisor with the Enseñamos en el Valle Central initiative. We are a program that supports, serves, and aims to produce more bilingual and future Latinx teacher back to the Central Valley. And today's session is going to be a workshop application for grants and scholarships that are available to aspiring teachers with the CSU and Fresno State, and also some external scholarships. So I'll be going through each of the items live, and I will put those links in the chat so that you can all follow along. Please feel free to ask any questions at any time, whether you want to put them in the chat, raise your hand, or if you want to save them for the end, that's okay too. But thank you all for being here. Happy Friday. These are the grants and scholarships that I'll be going over with you all today, including the federal teach grant, just giving you some more info, and I will provide the link to the request form in the chat. There is also a Cal grant teaching credential that you can request. There are some university grants that you can also obtain if you apply for financial aid. I'll be going over the federal loan, cancellation, and forgiveness programs for teachers. I'll touch on the CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship again for anybody that wasn't able to make it to our earlier session for the Aspiring Teacher Scholarship Workshop. I'll talk about the Residency Year Scholarship, as well as some another additional scholarship that we have for you. So the federal teach grant, that is something that is available to students here at Fresno State. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to save it for later. But the teach grant, it is something that you can request. It is available through Fresno State. That one is a very specific grant. I did put the link in the chat if you want to take a look at it. And then let me see if I can zoom in to this. There we go. So this is a federal program. So it is a federal grant up to $3,772 per year for students who are completing coursework to begin a career in teaching. You do have to agree to serve for a minimum of 4 years as a full-time qualified teacher. So that means you get your credential, you're going to serve for 4 years in a high-need field in a school that serves low-income students. So you have to make sure to meet all the eligibility requirements. You have to complete them in order to still continue to be eligible for the grant. If for whatever reason you do not complete the 4-year minimum or lose eligibility, then the grant does become converted into a federal direct unsubsidized loan. So unsubsidized again means you're accruing interest while you have the loan, and it must be paid back with that interest accruing from the dates that the funds were given to you. Once it turns into a loan, it stays a loan. So that's something very important to keep in mind if you do decide to go for the teach grant. How to be eligible. So you do have to agree to teach at a low-income elementary or secondary school. This gets determined and validated by the school district that you work for. You have to agree to teach in a high-need subject area. So here they determine that to be math, science, language arts, special education, or core subjects in elementary education. You do have to agree to be full-time for at least 4 years as a full-time teacher. And that has to be done within 8 years of completing the teaching program. So as soon as you graduate, you have 8 years to work in a high-need subject area in a low-income elementary or secondary school, and you have to do it for at least 4 years. You have to meet the first-year teach grant determination GPA requirements, which for undergrads, you had to have had a final high school cumulative GPA of a 3.25 or higher. And if you're A graduate or credential students, you have to have had an undergraduate cumulative GPA of also 3.25 or higher. You have to maintain that cumulative 3.5 GPA for the subsequent years to remain eligible. And then afterwards, you do have to be enrolled in a high need teaching program. So the high need subject areas do vary by state and they do change. And again, that does get verified by the school district that you work for. And then let me try to get that link for you guys. Did you have a question, Jenna?
Yes, so to require for this grant, what happens if we don't do these within the 8 or 10 years? Do we have to pay that grant back?
Yes, so for those of you who had joined a little bit late, I am going over the federal Teach Grant. And that something very important to keep in mind is that if you do not fulfill the eligibility requirements or you do not follow through with the commitment, then it becomes a federal district unsubsidized loan. So again, unsubsidized means that you begin to accrue interest during the loan, and that must be paid back with the interest that is accruing from the dates that the funds were dispersed.
Okay, and so there's going to be 2 grants we're going over today. I'm sorry, I did join late.
There's a few, so I'll be going over, this is barely the first one, so you're just in time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
I had a quick question. My question was, is that the federal grant, is it given throughout the credential program? Is it just a year and a half, or is it all 3 semesters?
This one, let me see. That is a good question. It sounds like it is something that you can get during the academic year. But let me look into it a little bit more because it doesn't mention like how many times you can apply to it. So usually for the Teach Grant, you have to have the FAFSA for the year that you're applying. So if you're applying for the academic year that you're going to be starting the credential program, that would be 1 year. And then if you're going to come back for that last semester, that would be another year. So you have to complete the Teach Grant request form, which I did put in the chat for the appropriate aid year. You do have to submit an education plan to financial aid and scholarships with your advisors. So if you plan to go for this grant, then make an appointment with your advisor so they can give you this education plan. And then you submit it with the application. You do have to complete Teach Grant entrance counseling. So anytime you get a loan or anything like that, they want you to do counseling. And then I'll put this in the chat as well. And then you do have to sign an agreement to serve. So that is where you physically agree to serve for at least 4 years. So to answer your question, Jeanette, it sounds like depending on the academic year, it is per academic year, but I will follow up to see if you can do it more than once.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Additional information. So all of this needs to be done each year you wish to receive the grant. So it does sound like you can do it more than once. Once you're done with your teaching program, you do need to do the Teach Grant exit counseling. So that's when you're done with the credential program. Additional info, again, please remember that if you do not fulfill the requirements of the program, so the eligibility requirements, the 4 years, this does turn into a federal unsubsidized loan. And that means if you don't teach in a high need subject area, If you don't teach any designated low-income school, not teaching full-time for 4 years with the 8 years of completing your teaching program. You do have to continuously show that you're meeting the terms of the Teach Grant, again, by obtaining the verification from the school site administrator each year. You have to be working full-time, again, in a high subject need area at a low-income school, cannot do part-time or part-time fulfillment of service. As long as you're deemed eligible, the grant gets given to you through My Fresno State. The grant, along with financial aid, cannot exceed the cost of attending Fresno State, which that gets determined based on how many units you're enrolled in and your living situation. For when it disperses, if you decide you don't want the award anymore, you can cancel all or a portion of it. With a cancellation request no later than 14 days of the award dispersed. So just make sure you don't use it if you want to return all of it, but I would consult with a financial aid advisor on that if that's something that you, in a situation that you find yourself in. Did we have some questions? So do we need to stay at one specific district with those 4 years, or can we change districts or school if it still meets guidelines? I believe you can still switch schools or districts as long as they can verify these areas, that it's a high subjecting area that you're teaching in, that you're teaching at a designated low-income school, and that you are going to do this for the 4 years. So if you switch around every 4 years or a couple of times during their 4 years, you still have to somehow obtain that verification. Any other questions? Okay, and then so here is more info on the Teach Grant, which is similar, pretty much the same information that we just went over. You do have to complete a FAFSA for this, so don't forget to still do FAFSA. We are a Teach Grant eligible program. You have to keep at least a 3.5, do the Teach Grant counseling, and then sign the form to serve or repay. And then this is just more information on the amount of awards. And these are also some high need fields such as bilingual education, English language, or special education. In exchange for receiving the Teach Grant, again, have to serve as full-time highly qualified teacher for 4 elementary or secondary school years at a school or educational service agency that serves low-income students, teach in a high need field, complete the required 4 years of teaching within 8 years after you graduate from otherwise cease to be enrolled in the institution of higher education where you receive the Teach Grants. And if you don't meet the requirements, it does turn into a direct and subsidized loan. And I believe I put the request form in the chat. And I'll just add it again in case anybody didn't have a chance to obtain it. But you're going to put your student ID, your last name, first name. This I would complete after. And you're going to check your degree objectives. So if you're currently an undergrad, if you're in the teaching credential or master's. And you're gonna complete the form, submit it to the financial aid office, which I think the financial aid office has like a system now where you can submit forms. You're gonna submit a signed education plan. So meet with your advisor before to get that education plan. You're gonna make sure you also complete the FAFSA. So if you haven't done it already, I would recommend that you do it soon. I know the deadline was on March 2nd, but however, you still can apply for FAFSA, I believe until June 30th, so that you can still get aid. It is first come, first serve, so the later that you wait, the longer it takes to receive FAFSA. Make sure you have the appropriate GPA. You're gonna select which term you're enrolling in and what term you want the aid for. Complete the grant agreements to serve, which that link was located in that first page, the grant counseling, and then be enrolled in a high need field program towards teaching in public or private or secondary elementary school. And then you'll sign in date. Any questions about the form or the Teach grant? Okay, so let's see. The next one I'll be going over is the Cal Grant Teaching Credential Program. So this is for future K through 12 teachers. If you've received a Cal Grant before, this gives you the opportunity to get another year of the Cal Grant renewal for people that are going to be teachers. It does have to be requested within 15 months of the last Cal Grant you've received. So you do have to submit a G4 form to the California Student Aid Commission. And I'll go ahead and get that form over to you guys right here. This information can also be found on the financial aid. So it's called the Cal Grant for Teaching Credential Program. And then the G44 form looks like this. Oops. And again, I would just consult with a financial aid advisor just to make sure there's like no issues or you haven't used all your financial aid or anything like that. But it's just a G44 form. Just fill out the information. And then here you're gonna put the school that you're going to, any credentials you may have already received. So if you have an emergency permit, and then your signature and date. And then this looks like more information on the activation chart. So they're asking you to, depending on when you've already gotten your bachelor's and then when you are going to start in a teaching program, and then the year that you're getting FAFSA for the California Dream Act. And by sending in this form, you're just letting them know that you are wanting to renew a Cal Grant for teaching if you're going into the credential program. And again, you want to do this within 15 months of the last time that you were dispersed a Cal Grant. Any questions about the Cal Grant teaching program?
For this one, it's just for 1 year, right?
Yeah, just 1 year. And there's a phone number here. So again, feel free to take a screenshot of any of these slides. And I'll be going over the CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship. It looks like for this one, they will take FAFSA or the California Dream Act. Since Cal Grants are state funding, and we do have state funding for the ABU 140 students. So there are also state university grants. This is really awesome because you can still get a state university grant, even if you are a credential or graduate student. This mostly goes towards your fees still, like your tuition and fees, and it's not really something that gets dispersed back to you. For this one, you still have to complete a FAFSA by March 2nd, have an expected family contribution of 4,000 or less, and be enrolled in at least 6 units for undergrad or 4 units for graduate students. Just some other requirements: must have less than 150 semester units or earned for undergrad. If you're a transfer, must have less than 75. If you're a credential, that you're eligible for their program length. So if your program requires 32, that you're eligible for up to 32 units. For masters, eligible for up to 125% of their initial masters, defined by the catalog. So it just depends by like how many, I would imagine, depending on what the units are in the catalog. If you have a second bachelor's or second credential, master's, or doctoral, unfortunately, you're not eligible for the state university grant. But this is something that you can still get as a grad student. That's something that I see a lot. I also got a state university grant even after I was an undergrad student, so as a master's student. And for this one, there's no direct application. This just gets determined for you through FAFSA. So usually the financial aid office is responsible for looking into this. And as long as you have a FAFSA on file, then if you are eligible, they'll go ahead and include it in your financial aid application or package.
So do most people, when they sign up for their credential program, also just fill out a FAFSA application as well?
Yes, I would highly encourage that. Anytime you're going to school, even if maybe you're already an independent student or you feel that you may still earn too much, I would still apply for FAFSA as a credential student because you still could get something through the university or the state grants. And also if you're applying to any scholarships, you have to have a FAFSA application on file.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as for something that I did not mention was Fresno State scholarships. I'll go over that at the very end, but the deadline did already pass on March 2nd, but I would still encourage you guys to look into it and apply in case there's any deadlines after March 2nd, but just something to consider. Okay, so my next one is the Federal Loan Cancellation and Forgiveness Program. So I'll just go over this very briefly, but once you guys get to a time where you've maybe accumulated loans or you're looking for forgiveness programs. So for federal loan cancellation, that applies to teachers who have taught in elementary or secondary schools as teachers in a school serving students from low-income families, a special education teacher, teachers in the fields of mathematics, science, foreign languages, or bilingual educations or other shortage areas in the state. And then for teacher loan forgiveness programs, they want to see that you've taught full-time for 5 complete and consecutive academic years in a low-income school or educational service agency. You could be eligible for up to 17,500 on your direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and your subsidized and unsubsidized federal Stafford loans. So if you ever had to take any of those out, those would be eligible. So let me also put those in the chat for you in case you want to look into more information about that. There are a lot of programs that exist for teachers in regards to loan cancellation and forgiveness. So now let me see if I can get the federal loan one really quick. They may have it. Let's see. Oh, it's on a different link. Okay, I'll have to find that link for you guys. In the meantime, let me move along. Okay, so there's this other one called the Residency Year Scholarship. And this one, I think for us, it's the CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship. But there is one that exists for an additional $5,000. Candidates from the CSU Teacher Residency Program who have committed to teaching in a high needs school for at least 2 years. Program recommended candidates with financial need who demonstrate excellent academic performance, significant personal achievements, and community service. So that's what they're looking for, as well as they want to have candidates teaching English learners, earning a bilingual credential, teaching in urban or high needs schools, supporting students with special needs. They want to see financial need determined by the financial aid office, enrolled in CSU and CSU residency program. So like the multiple subject single education specialist, and being in good academic standing. So this one, and let me see, I need to grab that link for you all. Okay, so this link is where I am obtaining all the scholarships we're going over for the CSU. So here's where you're going to find more info on the federal loan and cancellation forgiveness programs and the residency year scholarship. I did not touch on this one. It is one that's available, but they don't have a whole lot of information on it yet. But it is something that is also available to you guys once they post like a link for the application. Right now, it just seems to have the program, but there's no application link yet. As far as the other ones, the last one that I was touching on right here, the residency year scholarship one. So this one is for aspiring teachers. And the eligibility, again, interest in teaching English learners, bilingual credential, urban high need schools, supporting students with specific needs. There is a contact down here if you want to take a screenshot of it, if you need an additional contact. However, something that we did notice when looking into this scholarship is right now when we look into the fact sheet, for some reason Fresno State is not on here. So if you maybe are planning on getting a credential from any of these other universities, it looks like they have a direct teacher residency scholarship with their scholarship office. And then the application itself has an applicant information form, a personal statement, and one letter of reference. So that's very, very similar to the scholarship that we already have here that I'll be going over next, is our CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship. So for this one, if you guys want to scan the QR code, or I will also, oh, thank you. There's a link in the chat if you want to open up the application link for that one. This one is, again, similar to the residency year for multiple subjects, single subject, and education specialist credential students. I'm interested in teaching in bilingual classrooms or working with emergent bilingual learners. It's a little more, actually. It's a $10,000 scholarship. The deadline is next Friday, March 11th, I believe, like 11:59. We did have a workshop earlier, but we can answer any questions now if you were not able to attend the workshop earlier. But if you are eligible, if you are in the credential program right now, or you're planning to apply for this upcoming fall 2022, we highly encourage you to apply. If you know anybody in the credential program, send this to your friends. Please feel free to share to anybody in it or applying. It is a one-time $10,000 scholarship just for you. And I think they are planning to give out about 50 of those between Fresno State, Stanislaus State, and CSU Bakersfield. And again, for this scholarship, the application link is in the chat. They want people who are going to be or are in the credential program. They're giving out 50 scholarships. They're looking for candidates interested in bilingual classrooms, demonstrate financial need as determined by the financial aid office, be in good academic standing, be in multiple single subject or education specialist programs at CSU Bakersfield, CSU Fresno, and Stanislaus State. If you've received it before, unfortunately, you're not eligible to reapply. So it does sound like a one-time scholarship. The completed application packet. So again, a complete application packet is a strong application. So they want the applicant information form, which, let me give you that link. And they want, so this fact sheet, that just has more information. You don't have to upload that one. It just has more info on basically the same thing the Google form has. They are asking for a brief personal statement with 6 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 questions. Each of the questions has to be addressed, so make sure you answer each of them, and there's a 300-word limit for each question. They want to know why you're interested in becoming a teacher, what motivated you, what inspired you, what events brought you to wanting to pursue a career in education. Why are you interested in teaching English learners? So that's a big one to also focus on and not skip, especially because that is what this scholarship is sponsoring. Why that population? Why that group of students? Are you or do you want to become bilingual? If you are, really speak on that, on your experience, on your language, culture, maybe how that contributes to your inspirations, your goals, or aspirations, how that is influencing your career path. And if you're not, but you want to be, definitely describe maybe what you've been doing to become bilingual, what you're bringing to this group as someone who's becoming an emergent bilingual themselves, and how that's going to help you do things as a teacher. Describing community service, extracurricular activities, volunteer experience, and or previous academic honors or awards. So this is where you can really highlight yourself, talk about yourself, what work you've been putting in, things that you've been doing. And then lastly, do you have any financial needs that a scholarship will help you address? So here, if you want to use that as an opportunity to describe why you're a financially needy student. So if you support yourself, your family, if you have a spouse and children, even if maybe you're still not considered independent and you require on your parents' income for FAFSA, whatever it is that you want to write, you can address that there. And then lastly, you just need 1 letter of reference. So that can be anybody with an organization that you have worked with. So maybe a former school or current school supervisor, teacher, admin, maybe an advisor, counselor, a former student, or former mentor of yours. And again, the deadline is next Friday, but if you're working on this throughout the weekend or next week and you have any questions that come up, please feel free to send us questions. I put the email in our email in the chat if you want to check in with us. For anybody watching us online at a later time, our email is enseñamos, ENSENAMOS, @mail.fresnostate.edu. And so the application is this one. You're gonna fill this out, and then at the very bottom is where you're gonna upload those 3 files, including the applicant form. And I know that the applicant form does have similar questions to our Google form, but that's very important for us so that we can match forms in case they were to be separated. For major, I believe they're asking for undergraduate major. If you're a current credential or graduate student, put that GPA. If you're currently an undergrad and you're not credential or graduate yet, just put your undergraduate student GPA. And for cumulative, that is your total cumulative GPA. Anticipated graduation date, that's going to be, I believe, the credential graduation date. And then here, make sure you put how many units you anticipate to take each semester of the academic year that you're going to be in the credential program. And then down here, date it. And if you want to just sign or type your name out at the bottom, that's fine too. If you do have access to this form, please feel free to download it. It will not give you access to work on it on Google. So download it, save it, double check everything, and then make sure you upload it to the Google form. For the personal statement, same thing. It's gonna ask those questions that we just went over right here. Double check everything, make sure you're uploading the correct file, and then same thing for the letter of reference. If you want to obtain these first and then go ahead and work on the application and upload everything at the same time, that's fine. If you accidentally submit the wrong thing or you need to resubmit something again, just let us know, send us an email so that we're aware if we see any double names or double applications. Any questions on the CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship? No? Okay. Moving on. So lastly, this is a really good organization that I highly like to promote and encourage students to apply to. It's called the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. This association brings together different Hispanic serving colleges, which Fresno State is a Hispanic serving college. So right now they have just a generic one. It's the Café Bustelo Scholarship. Super simple. They're only asking for a full-time undergrad or graduate student attending a 4-year HACU member institution, which we are. It's open to all majors. So this is for undergrad or a graduate student again. You have to have at least a 2.0 or higher, be a U.S. citizen, permanent residence, or eligible to work in the U.S. So if you have DACA and you're eligible and it's active, you've renewed it, and you're eligible to work in the U.S., you should be able to apply. And it's just a 800-word essay on the following topic. Describe how your Latino heritage, family, and the community in which you grew up in have impacted your desire and motivation to obtain a college degree. Additionally, describe what you intend to accomplish with your degree and how you will give back to your community. So if you're an aspiring teachers, aspiring bilingual teacher, you can definitely talk on this. You can talk about your own personal journey, your community, anything that you've done in your family or community, maybe anything that is motivating you or has inspired you to obtain a college degree. And you can also definitely speak on your career goals and what you're going after in regards to the teaching profession, especially similar to what the other scholarship had pointed out, what you plan to or intend to do with that degree. So what do you plan or intend to do in the classroom as a teacher or even as a bilingual teacher to give back to your community? So this one, if I click on, I think I hyperlinked it. They always have many different types of scholarships like this. The reason I definitely encourage, I call it HACU, I don't know if that's how you say it, but I was a recipient of one of their scholarships. It was the Miller Coors Scholarship. They have more than one, and each of them, some of them are tailored to like any major. Some of them, like this one, for example, is also, if you're like a first-time freshman, it's open to all majors, U.S. citizen, permanent residence, DACA, legally authorized to work in the U.S. Some of them are more tailored to a specific career. So this one, for example, is like eager to pursue a career in the business side. So these are constantly changing. They're not the same exact scholarship every single time. So I was a recipient of the Miller Coors, like the beer company. And again, it was one of these where it was like open to all majors. So I also have a background in education and counseling. And it was really awesome. I got it as a graduate student, which was even better. And they actually flew me out to a conference out in Atlanta, Georgia. So they also have opportunities like this. They put on a conference every year in a different location. The last year's obviously it was on Zoom because of the pandemic, but if they do begin to open it again, some of these scholarship programs will actually sponsor your flight and your hotel, all your food and everything, which is what they did for me. And it was like a really, really good experience because I got to travel. I got to meet other Hispanic, Latinx teacher, or not teachers, but students, professionals, and they do have like fairs and vendors and things like that, live entertainment, celebration. So it's not just a boring conference, like they actually make it fun. So yeah, definitely check this periodically. Right now the scholarship program is open and everything usually is posted on here. If you click on, let me see. How will it actually let me apply? They have the email right here. Oh, the right apply here. Usually you can just click on the link and they'll have individual applications, but is it open to undergraduate students? I mean, technically if you're, oh, it looks like you have to create an ID now to log in. So it looks like you have to, yeah, create a profile and an ID to be able to access the scholarships. But yeah, technically, if you're still planning to transfer and you're doing like an ADT or like your associates, that's still considered undergrad. Any questions about these scholarships or any information on the Hispanic Association of College and Universities?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Does this one have any requirements like the other one that you have to work for 4 years at a certain place or any of that stuff?
No, I don't think so. Each of the scholarships have their own criteria. So as long as you check like what they're asking for on there, then that's all they're asking for. And then if you're, I can't log on because I don't have an account anymore, but as long as they have like their terms of agreement or all of that on there, they should, usually if it's something that like specific, like where you have to commit to something, they'll put it right on the application too. But anything or everything that they're asking for will be on the description.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? And it looks like for this one, they're giving out 25. And for this one, 17. This one looks like they're just giving out 2. So they usually sometimes give out more than 1. Okay, that is all I have for all of you today. I'm gonna stick around if you guys want to sit here with me and work on some of these. That way I can answer any questions, especially the CSU Aspiring Teacher Scholarship one. If you guys need any help with that one, I know that one's a little bit longer and it's the first deadline that's coming up. But please feel free to stay connected with us. Email us again with any questions regarding any of the scholarships, anything related with Credential, liberal studies, anything at all really. We're happy to serve you guys and guide you in anything that you need. Stay connected with us on social media. We are pretty active on there. We do promote pretty much all of our events there too. And we have stayed pretty consistent with answering questions on there as well. So if you kind of just want to follow us and check us out, see what we have upcoming, please feel free to do so. But thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.